Good afternoon. Very nice to meet you today and to have this panel with my fellow panelists here. We will discuss today, and we have the chance to have three representatives of the user and the buyer side, in a way. We have talked a lot this morning, and we have seen a lot of examples of startups and very interesting technologies and very exciting AI solutions for healthcare. So we were in the hype of AI for healthcare, and it was very, very interesting and very fun to have that. Now we will talk about the reality as well. So we will do a kind of reality check to see a bit what is the level of adoption of these technologies within the healthcare systems, what are the issues, and I count on you to explain us what is happening in your hospitals or healthcare provider or the healthcare provider with who you're working with. So we will start first to have this reality check to understand how it is adopting at the moment or not adopting perhaps in your hospital and your healthcare provider team. What is the situation for you, Maria, in your hospital in Madrid?
Thank you, Julien. Good afternoon, everyone, and thanks to the organization to having us here and to let us talk about this important topic. So I work in a public hospital in Madrid. It's a tertiary hospital. It's a university hospital. It serves like 500,000 population. So we have to take into consideration the profile of our population and our purpose. So AI is meant to make things easier for both as healthcare professionals, but mostly for the patients and for the families. So we are working steadily in AI implementation, and we are lucky to have a co-creation team and some co-creation facilities to bring up these solutions and to develop them together to make them matter. So we try and decide which implementations or which developments really met some unmet needs with high impact. And this is our purpose. So as I say, I think we have the privilege to work this way. And so we can develop several different developments for AI. So we can try robots. We can try expert systems for clinical decision support systems. And as I said, it is our privilege to come up with them all together. Engineers, patients, clinicians, health decision makers. So.
And what is the reaction of your health professionals? Are they enthusiastic?
Well, this is a very good question, but I think that as long as they are involved since the beginning in the development of the idea, because they bring us the unmet need, they feel involved in the progress, and they feel like they belong to the program or to the project. So they work with us, and they give us very necessary feedback about the solution or the developments.
Thank you very much, Maria. Alba, perhaps in Aragon, what kind of reaction you are facing when you are working in your research on AI and new technologies?
Actually, my institution belongs to the healthcare department. And the reality, the question, the reality is that it is not implemented. I mean, by implementation that I understand is deployed, used, scaled up, the whole system, everybody trained, so they know, they have the tools and they can use it, and it creates an impact. An impact where? In the patients, in the citizens. So this is not happening, and I don't think it's happening anywhere, I would say, in our country. That said, I think that it creates a lot of frustration. So from other technologies, we know that sometimes the companies don't know how to approach the healthcare system. They don't understand public healthcare system. They don't understand it. And we try to build some bridges through innovation units, for example, or people in institutions that belong to the healthcare system and that can help to break these silos. And it happens in other technologies. It's not only the AI. But we still think of projects, for example. So, and here we face also a lot of problems that are how we access, we meaning companies, how is the access to data? How do we work with healthcare professionals, but are not only citizens, patients, associations, and sometimes we also forget decision makers. So not only hospital-based. This can work, you can develop a project and implement a solution for local hospital or local service, but this is not implementation that impacts the whole society. And this is something that we need to work together to first create trust. I would say that this is also the first barrier, that we don't trust each other. We don't understand each other. We don't trust each other. We are not coming from the same backgrounds. So we don't speak the same languages. And we need first to do this. So it is not just another project or just another thing that goes nowhere.
Okay, so
But-
more a systemic view, an holistic view to adopt on this project.
Yeah.
Okay. Mafalda, we will go to Portugal. We travel a bit in this session, going to Lisbon. How is it happening or not happening, perhaps, in Portugal? What kind of reaction from the healthcare professionals you are facing? Are they worried or they're enthusiastic? What is the situation in your hospital?
Thank you. Well, so firstly, thank you very much for the invite. It's a pleasure. Well, I think my colleagues here have pretty much touched upon most of the points and the most important points. Maybe I will just get what Alba was saying in terms of we need to speak the same language. Everyone needs to speak the same language, and this is a real issue. And so when we talk about AI, and I was actually at a conference last week, and this was the theme, so AI for medical doctors, for the healthcare. And there's this fright in the room, because the doctors, most of them, we have an exception here with us, but usually when you talk about AI, the doctors, they think, oh, so now you want a machine to do my job for me. And, what about people-to-people interaction? What about if the machine makes a mistake? So, the fright instantaneously is that AI, it's not going to be a tool to help them, but it's actually something that can be used against them. So I think that's probably the first stigma that we need to start addressing and start talking about this. And I think sometimes the companies on the other side, they don't really understand this, because for them it's like, oh, I'm coming up with this, the greatest solution ever. How come you don't take this or implement this or scale this? As Alba was saying, it's so incredible. So we really need to start talking with each other, get the whole system involved, because I think the idea that AI is going to replace the doctors and what they do on their daily job is quite frightening. So we need to start clarifying that and how many possible ways we can use AI as a tool. And when I say AI, I say digital applications, technology, everything that has it included in. So how can you use that as a tool to make you more efficient and to help diagnosis and to help, instead of being a menace, because sometimes they look at it and they're like, you're going to replace me and, I love my job, or they think that they can always do better. But I think that's maybe adding up on what has been said already, that's probably another question that we need to think about. And then maybe the startups or from the technology side, they need to start thinking on that as well. So don't just approach sometimes the healthcare system saying, oh, our solution is spectacular, AI is the next big thing. But there's also the other side that needs to be taken into account.
Yeah, care is still a human thing, so care should remain certainly a human thing. And these worries around the rules of the games, around the language and the capacity to understand each other, to co-create, to be sure that I won't be replaced by a robot in my place, and it's a partnership instead of being a replacement. All of this could be addressed by different ways, but one way that this continent, Europe, is taking is to develop some regulation, so to develop some rules of the games. Europe has been historically pretty pioneered on the regulation on digital technologies. It has started with the data governance topic, and we had been the first continent to develop a data protection regulation at the continent level, which actually has creating babies all across the planet and the world. And we were very early as well, I think, in Europe on the question of trustworthiness of AI in 2019, I think it was, and then the AI Act, of course, last year, which is specifying some rules of the games. We hear sometimes from the industry side that regulation is the enemy of innovation, but we see as well that on the problem of adoption or the difficulty for adopting that, it sometimes could be a solution. What is your take on that? What is your point of view on the usefulness of this regulation and the impact on innovation?
That's an important question. In my experience, regulation provides a comfort zone for users, for healthcare decision makers, and for the last users, which are patients and citizens. The point is that development and implementation often go ahead and precede regulation. But we need agile regulations to know what we can do and what can't be done. And I think the IA Act from Europe, it's going to provide a framework to at least categorize the risks. So, as I said, it's a comfort zone for all of us. And in the meantime, I think, and I will like to, I think that the experience provides also some comfort or the risk experience for users and for regulators in the healthcare sector.
Sure, thank you. Eba.
I think the feeling is that everything is going so fast, and so that we are always behind with the regulations, and that in the public healthcare we have a frame, strict, hyper-regulated, I would say, and that still we don't understand, we from inside, and companies from outside the system, also we all get stuck there, and we don't have the tools developed to run at the same time. I don't think the regulation, I mean the AI Act is creating, well, a barrier. As she was saying, it's a frame, can be better, it can be worse, but again, the important thing is here how we with this regulation that is protecting people, so the spirit of that will be protecting people, because we need to remember that the data belongs to the citizen, not the healthcare systems, not anybody else. So how you protect people when we advance, when we innovate, when we develop tools that can be applied, and it can be consequences, because the healthcare system is yet a sector that is more complex than others. And here, I think the idea is that, okay, it comes the lawyer to say that I cannot do this, I can try this, I can have this data. No. Let's see how we do things, advance fast, but do we need the right way? And there are ways, but still we need to talk to each other, sit on the same table and say, okay, my problem is that, openly speak about the problems and say, okay, how do I access data for research, for doing the trainings of algorithms? How do I, and there are solutions. And again, it's something that is also trust. We try to hyper-regulate because we don't trust, so in case someone wants to do it badly, or in case someone has, and in general I would say that companies don't want to do it wrong, but it's that
It's the hypothesis at the beginning.
we are not involved, everybody. We are not involved in the first conversations, and you get the solution that she was saying, Mafalda was saying. Okay, but I have this solution, yes, but I don't know anything about this solution. I don't know how it works, how it was trained, if it takes some insights from patients, etc. And this is why I think we hyper-regulate sometimes. And then for the adoption and this regulation, we have all this regulation coming for the validation of the solution in the healthcare system that is not known. And also in the procurement, so this is yet another regulation, additional regulation that is quite difficult also to innovate there. So I don't think the regulation comes to stop the innovation or prevent the AI implementation, but we need to know and maybe change some regulation that we see. So that is an evolving regulation that can, with the experience and knowledge of everybody involved, can be adapted to be successful there in the implementation.
Yeah, sure. It's something that is very important, the dialogue between the different parties within a safe space when we are talking about a regulation and its evolution. Actually, the European Commission and at the EIT, we are working with them on that, working on regulatory sandboxes, where we have a safe space where healthcare providers, researchers, companies can work together. Healthcare professionals, of course, can work together. So it's actually this kind of adjustment to the regulation or to the way we were producing regulation in the past actually is changing, certainly, and the way we will produce the new laws in the future will certainly change to fit with the issues you were mentioning and the hurdles, actually, that the regulation or regulatory framework can create. Mafalda, in your hospital, this international regulation, European regulation, Alba was talking about data access, for instance, and I know it's a huge request from startups and companies. Of course, when you work on AI, if you don't have data, you don't have AI. So how are you dealing with this regulatory framework and the continuous demand of companies, I assume, from AI sector?
Well, I think the framework is there, the regulatory framework is there, as you said, in the AI Act as well, but it's not specific for healthcare. So that's something that we need to start talking about this. And I mean, we can say that the system is very complex, that, I mean, even for us, and we are in it every day, and it's very difficult to explain. But it's duly so, because we're talking about people, our lives. At the end of the day, we're talking about you going to a hospital and live or die. So that makes it very complex and makes it regulations around the healthcare sector very strict for good reason. So then when you get these new technologies and you get AI into the picture, the framework is there, but it needs to be specified for the healthcare system. And then not only through the healthcare system, but also nationally, because then, you know, you have the EU regulation, but then you have to be able to adopt it and adapt it to the national health systems. I mean, look at, we are in Spain. I am not Spanish, but I have a really hard time explaining the Spanish health system. It's a nightmare in itself, right?
Me too.
Right? And then you go to Portugal, and now we have a new system. It's called the Integrated Delivery System, and everyone is looking at us like, what are you doing? So, you know, you go across Europe, and you have all these different health systems with all different regulations. So then you take one framework of a regulation, one mainstream regulation from the EU, but then you have to somehow scale down, now we're talking about scaling down, to the specific needs of the countries and of the different health sectors. And then again, when you talk about the health sector and you talk about data, one thing is a big university hospital like ours. Other thing is primary care, which is also very useful data for AI, to help diagnosis, to get, I don't know, you can use AI for so many things in the health sector. So there's a lot of different smaller frameworks that you need to work at that are very relevant. And then data access or data health space, it's a whole other issue that I don't think we have the time to go into this now. But I mean, it will help to at least have a common sense of open data, or like at least a common way of creating data to help then companies, startups, technology, pharmaceutical companies as well to access this type of data. But it's, I mean, I think we're still a long way.
Thank you.
Can I say,
please.
because I was thinking of, no, I'm not contradicting you.
He's going to say you're not right.
I was thinking of
oh my God.
regarding this data and something that is real and is happening, like implementation is not real, so not yet. Okay. About data and data spaces that we have the regulation, and our institution participated in this initiative.
The European
Health
Data
Data
Space.
Space, yes. And now it's piloting some solutions. But our region and, or institution is responsible for all data from the whole healthcare system for secondary use, so for research. Pseudonymized with all safety and all the regulations are met, and that provides to researchers this data to do different things. And we still, from the healthcare system, I'm saying this because we still, from the healthcare system, need to change from my data from my hospital and local pilots with not enough sets that are not big enough to train the AI algorithms. And we are still doing this transition. So at the same time that companies are coming to different doors, so how can give me the data so I can develop this, we internally are doing this transition from data are there in the services, in the hospitals, in the healthcare systems, but separated, the primary care data, the hospital data, etc., to regional and national data spaces with meeting all the requirements in legal, so it's safe, and so we can trust the system when we give access to the companies or researchers, not because the trust is not, lack of trust is not because they are private companies, but also that who is accessing the data and what the guarantee, so how can we provide it without putting in risk the system and the data, leakage, etc.
Thank you, Alba. So we are heading slowly toward the end of this session, but actually we have in the South Summit a number of startups and entrepreneurs and researchers in new technology, deep tech. What would be for you the way forward? So we made the statement that the adoption is still not completely happening or not happening at all, depending on who I hear in this panel. But there are some good initiatives and good practices as well that you have in your activities with the startups, with the companies developing that. What would be the advice to these startup or entrepreneurs we have in the room, how we manage to work with an hospital and a healthcare system nowadays? What is the best way for you?
Now I'm seeing many heads raising up in the audience. So it is paramount that we work together. I mean, healthcare professionals, healthcare institutions, governments, companies, and startups. I don't want the startups to think that reaching the hospital is impossible. We are more and more changing the culture of the healthcare institutions, so we can get the startups co-creating the solutions with us, because otherwise it won't work. It won't work if I have an unmet need that nobody feels, and it doesn't work if you guys develop a solution that nobody asked for. But we are open to have the startups with us, and actually at Hospital Clínico we have worked in several initiatives to gather the startups in different fields to come up with a solution for a specific unmet need provided by the healthcare professional or even the patients. which need to be taken into account. So I encourage the startups to find the contact person in the healthcare organizations. I think it's becoming increasingly easier to find this person. And not only in my institution, but I'm sure in your institutions you have this kind of contact person who can accompany you guys or guide you through the process.
Thank you. In 30 seconds, well, 40 seconds for both.
10 seconds.
So.
Okay. I would say that we from the healthcare systems also have to blame on the situation that we are facing. That is, we don't provide the right persons in the table so the companies can sit on the same table to discuss. And the companies, and we have to pull instead of being pushed for adopting the technology. So this will be the two messages.
Mafalda,
That's me.
for the conclusion. Yeah.
Okay, I think
Push,
so.
pull.
If on one hand we need to increase the literacy of our collaborators and everyone that is in the healthcare system industry, policymakers to understand this. On the other side, also I think the companies need to understand also the risks of adopting AI technology into the healthcare system because it's a very specific system.
So mutual comprehension. Good message. Thank you very much for that.
3 seconds.
Boom.
Fantastic. Can we have a huge round of applause, please?
Thank you.
That was brilliant. Give it up.